Hello students, welcome for this minor course on object-oriented programming in Java, lecture number 5. So, in the previous class, we have discussed the fourth important pillar of object-oriented programming language, that is inheritance. So, in the last class, we have seen what is the concept of inheritance, the different types of inheritance, that is single inheritance, then multiple inheritance, then multi-level inheritance, then hybrid inheritance, and the hierarchical inheritance. And also we try to address, or we try to see the real-time example that where we can use the inheritance in real world problem. And also we have discussed the advantages of the inheritance when you are talking about the object oriented programming language, that is the reusability and the extendability. So it is one of the key feature of the object oriented programming language. So till the time we have discussed the various features of the different concepts in object oriented programming system, like we have discussed very first that what is the object, then how we are going to define the object, what is the role of the object in object oriented programming language. Second thing which we have discussed in object oriented concepts, that is classes. In that we have seen that what is classes, how to define the classes, know what is the significance of the classes in object oriented programming language. Then we have started with the four major pillars of object oriented programming language, that is when we can say the particular programming language as an object oriented programming language. And in that the very first feature or the very first pillar that we have discussed, that is the data encapsulation. Second, we have discussed the pillar that is called as data abstraction. Third, we have discussed the third pillar of object oriented programming language, that is polymorphism. In that we have discussed that the polymorphism of different types, that is runtime polymorphism and the compile time polymorphism. And lastly, in the previous class we have discussed that is what is inheritance and the different types of inheritance. So in today's class we are going to discuss the remaining concepts of object oriented programming system, that is the dynamic binding and message passing. And we are going to conclude this particular unit by differentiating the procedure oriented programming language and object oriented programming language, and lastly the differences between the object oriented programming language and the object based programming language. So let's start with the remaining concepts in object oriented programming system. So the next concept which we are using in object oriented programming language, that is called as dynamic binding. So we all must have heard about the term that is called as dynamic. When I'm talking about the dynamic means the runtime, means when I'm talking about binding. So whenever we are talking about the object oriented programming language, the term binding means that is we need to bind the code and the procedure together in order to get the required output or in order to execute the required function. So that particular phenomena or that particular term is called as dynamic binding. That is, binding means combining or no clubbing the procedural call and code together at runtime. That particular thing is called as the dynamic binding. So it is the process of linking the function call to the actual code. Because what actually happens when we are writing the object oriented program, so we are writing some class, means the definition or the logic which you want to write for the particular program, that you are writing inside the class. But by means of writing the thing inside the class, that doesn't mean that the class will get executed automatically. So in order to execute the thing which you have defined inside the class, we require the object. So whatever the data members, whatever the member function we have defined in the class, so in order to access that data member function, we need to create the object. So what we do, we create the object inside the main function, and whenever we want to call the particular function or the particular data member, so we call that particular data member or the member function by using the object. That is, we use the syntax like object dot function name. So whenever we are writing the object dot function name, so what exactly we are doing, we are actually linking that in the main function we are only specifying the function name, whereas the definition of the function is with the class. So whenever we are calling that object dot function name, so it is actually fetching the function code from the class. So that is what we are linking the function call to the actual code. So when we are writing the object dot function name, so we are calling that particular function. But when it is actually executing, so that particular function call is get linked with the actual definition where we are define that particular function. And to do so, we use the concept that is called as a dynamic binding. It is called as dynamic binding because that function call and the function definition or the code of that particular function is get linked together when we try to execute the code or when we try to run the code. And that is the reason we call this particular process as a dynamic binding. So that is a dynamic binding. The actual code to be executed is not known to the compiler until the runtime. Means when we actually run the program, then only compiler understand that know how to link the particular function with which code. So that is the reason it's called as the dynamic binding, or also called as a runtime binding, or also called as a late binding. So for example, if I'm talking about this particular example, compiler comes to know at runtime that which function of sum will call either with 2 arguments or with 3 arguments. That is, it's, let's say if you are having more than one definition for the sum function, so no compiler understand that which sum function to call when we are actually calling that particular function. That is, compiler comes to know that which particular sum function to be get called and executed at the runtime, and that is what the dynamic binding is. Hope this dynamic binding concept is quite clear, and it is what very frequently we are using whenever we are writing the object oriented programming language. Then the last concept that we are going to discuss in this particular unit, that is called as message passing. So as we all know what is message passing, in order to communicate or in order to exchange the message or in order to communicate certain thing to someone, we usually pass the message. So that is what the same thing the program is actually doing, or the program is also doing the same thing. So the message passing is nothing but what? Communicating with each other. But when we are talking about the object oriented programming language, the communication is actually carried out by means of the objects. So when you are talking about the message passing in object oriented programming language, so objects can communicate with each other by passing the message, same as the people passing the message with each other. That is, if suppose I am considering the example of, let's say, bank. So in bank we are having the two different classes. Let's say the customer is one class and the account is another class. So whenever we are performing any operation onto the account, so that is where the message passing is actually carried out. That is, using the object, right, we are communicating between the customer class and between the account class. So whenever we want to communicate between the two different functions or two different classes, we require the message passing concepts. So, and for that purpose we require the objects in order to communicate, in order to pass the messages. So objects can send or receive the message or information. Then when you're talking about the message passing, then which are the different steps which are involved, right? So there are basically three different steps which is involved when you are talking about the message passing. The very first is what? We need to create the class for which we can define the objects and their behavior, right? We already seen that what is the class and what is the object in the previous concepts. So I guess this particular term is quite clear to you all. Then once you define the class, then we are creating the object, because until and unless we are not going to create the object, we cannot access the content of the class. So in order to access the content of the class, we need to create the object, right, from the class definition. And once we create the object, now we are in a position that where we can perform the message passing. That is, once we have the object, now we can establish the communication amongst the object in order to pass the messages between the between the required classes or between the required functions. So the concept of message passing makes it easier to talk about building the system that directly model or simulate their real world counterparts. So for this particular example, if I'm talking about the product and order, so usually what we do, so this product and order both are the different classes, but as a user what we do, we simply place the order for the particular product. So whenever we are placing the order for the particular product, so at the back end, using object, this particular product and the order is actually communicating with each other. And when we are saying that the product and order is communicating with each other, so they are exchanging the message between each other. So that is what the term message passing is in case of your object oriented programming language. The object of the product class can communicate with the object of the order class by sending the request for placing the order. And this is how we are calling the particular function. This order one is nothing but the object name. This place order is nothing but the function name for the order class. And this is what the parameters which are passing inside the quantity in hand. And that is how we are performing the message passing. So this is one more example. If I'm talking about a college, right? So in college we can see that we are having a different entities, like student is one entity, faculty is another entity, and let's say the management is one more entity. But in order to have a proper college management system or proper student management system, all these entities are communicating with each other or passing the message with each other. Now when we are saying that the faculty is generating the result or faculty is announcing the result, so that particular result is visible to the student, that particular result is visible to the management. How it is possible? Because all these entities are passing the message between each other. And when we are saying that they are passing the message between each other, so they are actually what? They are creating the objects, and objects are the actual one which are communicating between each other, right? So this concept is quite clear, that what is the message passing and what is the significance of message passing. Means we use the message passing whenever we want to have the communication between the different entities or between different classes or between different functions. So to have the message passing, in case of object oriented programming language, we use the objects, and that is how we are performing the message passing. So this is what the last basic concepts of your object oriented programming language. Now let's move towards the differentiation between the procedure oriented programming language and the object oriented programming language. So till the time whatever we have discussed in the previous lectures or this particular lectures, now you people are in a position that you can differentiate between the procedure oriented programming language as well as the object oriented programming language. So we'll just quickly see that what is the difference between the procedure oriented programming language and the object oriented programming language. But before that, we'll just quickly end this basic concept of object oriented programming language by saying by listing down the benefits of object oriented programming language. So the benefits of object oriented programming language are that user can create the new data type, that is the new class name. Code can be reused, that is the reusability is there. Then data can be hidden, that is we can hide the data by means of the access specifier, so we are maintaining the security. Then we are having the features like function overloading, right? So that is what the feature, or that is the polymorphism. So the same function can perform the multiple tasks, so that is the benefit of object oriented programming language. Then the object oriented programming language can be easily upgrade, can be easily extend, and the partition of the same project is quite easy because we can divide the task amongst the number of developer or the number of programmer, so we can work fastly on a particular project. Then message passing technique make the communication quite easier. Then the software complexity can be managed, can be reduced. Then the maintenance cost is less, and the most important, it is very simple to implement. So these are what all the benefits of object oriented programming language. So up till now we have discussed the procedure oriented programming language, then we have talked about the different features of object oriented programming language, we have elaborated all the features of object oriented programming language, and then we have discussed the benefits of object oriented programming language. But when we are discussing all these points, the question which arises, that what are the applications of object oriented programming language, means where we can use this object oriented programming language in a real world. So when you are talking about object oriented programming language, we can use the object oriented programming language in almost all sort of application. Like we can design the real time systems, we can design the simulations and modeling, we can know create the object oriented databases, we can even write the web designing, we can even design the AI and export system, we are also can write the distributed system and the parallel programming, we can even design the decision support system, then office automation system, whatnot, right? You just name the area and we can use the Java to design the application for that particular scenario or for that particular purpose. Not exactly Java, but object oriented programming language, right? So next we'll discuss the differences between the procedural and the object oriented programming language. As we have earlier discussed that when you're talking about procedure oriented programming language, the program is divided into the small parts and each small part is nothing but called as the functions in case of your procedural language. Whereas when you're talking about object oriented language, in case of object oriented programming language, we are dividing the program into the small parts and each small parts is nothing but called as the objects. Whereas procedural oriented programming language follows the top down approach, whereas object oriented programming language follows the bottom up approach. In case of procedure oriented programming language like C, we do not have the access specifier, and that is the reason the code was not secured. Whereas in case of object oriented programming language, we are having the features of access specifier, like we can define the thing like private, public and protected. Whereas again in case of procedure oriented language, the maintainability or adding the new data and the function was not the easy task, whereas adding the new function or the data is quite easy in case of object oriented programming language. Again, the procedure oriented programming language was not secured because by default the data was global and we are not having the mechanism of access specifier, so we cannot hide the data from outside world. Whereas in object oriented programming language, we are having the access specifier and using that we can know make our data more secure, or you can secure our data. In procedure oriented programming language, we are not having many features which is supported by the object oriented programming language, like overloading. Then when you're talking about procedure oriented programming language, the procedure oriented programming language is emphasizing more onto the procedures rather than the data, and in case of object oriented programming language, we are emphasizing more onto the data rather than the functions or the procedure. Again, the procedure oriented language we cannot use to address the real world problems or the real world examples. And object oriented programming language, yes, we can use the object oriented programming language to address or to solve the real world problems. Then one very important difference that usually ask, or that we should understand, that what is the difference between the object oriented programming language and the object based programming language, right? Both these terms looks quite similar, but they are having a huge difference. Because when we are talking about the object oriented programming language, so we cannot say any given programming language as an object oriented programming language straight away, right? So in order to say any given programming language as an object oriented programming language, then that particular language should support those four basic pillars of object oriented programming language, that is data encapsulation, data abstraction, polymorphism and inheritance. Means when any language is supporting all these four features, then only we can say that that particular programming language is an object oriented programming language. But what if any language which is not supporting all these features, right? This can be the case that we are having a certain language which is not supporting all the four features, but which can support the partial features. Like if I'm talking about the four features, that is abstraction, polymorphism, inheritance and encapsulation, we may have a language which may only support the encapsulation, polymorphism and inheritance, and which may not support the abstraction. So in that case, can we call that particular language as object oriented programming language? But obviously the answer is not, because in order to say the programming language as an object oriented, so it should strictly support all the four major pillars of object oriented programming language, right? So when any language which is not supporting all the four major pillars of object oriented programming language but supporting the partial features, right, which may support the 2 feature, which may support the 3 feature, in that particular case that particular language is said to be a object based programming language. And object based programming language do exist and we do use that particular programming language for our programming purpose. So when you are talking about object oriented programming language and the object based, so all the characteristics and the features of object oriented programming are supported by the object oriented programming language, whereas all the characteristics and the features of object oriented programming language such as inheritance and polymorphism are not supported. Or in other words, the object based programming language supports the partial feature of object oriented programming language, whereas the object oriented programming language includes C++, Java, .NET, C Sharp. Whereas when you're talking about the object based programming language, which includes the JavaScript, VB script, these are nothing but called as the object based programming language, because this language is supporting the partial features of object oriented programming language. And next, the Java is the best example of object oriented programming language because it supports all the features of object oriented programming language, and VB is example of object based because it is supporting almost all the features but it is not supporting the inheritance. So that is the reason we said VB as an object based programming language, right? And we should know the differences between this object oriented and the object based programming language. So with this I conclude this particular unit, that is unit number 1. So before ending this particular class, let's revise that what are the different contents we have seen in this particular class. So we have started with the first thing, that is the what is the procedure oriented programming language, the different features of procedure oriented programming language. Then we have discussed the different limitations and the drawbacks of procedure oriented programming language, and after that we have discussed the need and the use of object oriented programming language. So once we have defined the need of object oriented programming language, then we have dived into the different features and the concepts of object oriented programming language, and we have seen the four major pillars of any object oriented programming system, that is namely data encapsulation, data abstraction, polymorphism and inheritance. Then we have discussed the basic concepts of object oriented programming language, that is what is object, then what is class. Then in today's class we have discussed what is dynamic binding and the message passing, and finally we have differentiate the procedural language and the object oriented programming language, and lastly the object oriented programming language and the object based programming language. So with this I conclude here the unit number 1. If anybody is having any doubt, any question or any queries, they can ask me, they can ping me personally. So till that, see you in the next class with the next unit. Till that time, bye.